to the Outback. We wish you best of luck for the Tuesday in November when we run the Melbourne Cup. For the Tuesday in November when we run the Melbourne Cup. We'll be there to watch the ladies in their bathing suits and gowns. We'll mix the aristocracy with politics and clowns. With one eye on the racetrack, cause our number might come up on that Tuesday in November when they run the Melbourne Cup. On that Tuesday in November when they run the Melbourne Cup. On that Tuesday in November when they run the Melbourne Cup. Get 'em up when they run the Melbourne Cup. On that Tuesday in November when they run the Melbourne Cup. On that Tuesday in November when they roll back Goldman Sams, they come down.
Running down to the turn in the 81 Melbourne Cup, and it's Flashing Light, the leader. Moving up on the outside, El Lorino, and then Mr. Cromwell just a dash. Anzus improving out wider on the track. Hyperno threading his way through. No Pia between runners, followed by Kingston Town, who's locked away. Then our Paddy Boy and Coiro Trelay. 300 metres left to go in the Cup now, and Anzus swept up on the outside to grab El Lorino. Flashing Light dropping off. Finishing well as Hyperno on the outside, and No Pia in the clear now. 250 metres left to go. Anzus under the whip, the leader from Hyperno, who tried to duck in. No Pia going between them now, and then Coiro Trelay. 100 metres left to go. Anzus joined by No Pia. Hyperno fighting on. No Pia got his head in front of No Pia. Won the Cup from Hyperno. Anzus ran third, followed by Coiro Trelay. Then Kingston Town. The first Tuesday in November, but all of Australia's attention is focused on Flemington Racetrack in Melbourne. The reason? A horse race that is part of Australian heritage. It's known as the Melbourne Cup, and all of Australia stops for it.
We now welcome Sydney radio stations to our coverage of the 1981 Melbourne Cup. Your race caller is Clem Dempsey. We're crossing to him now.
And from Flemington, it's good afternoon to listeners throughout Australia. This is the 121st running of the Melbourne Cup, with prize money this year of $310,000, making the Cup once again one of the richest handicap races in the world. Here at Flemington, the track is fast and the weather is fine. A full field of 24 stayers will soon be in the starters' hands for the journey over 3,200 metres, approximately 2 miles. The crowd is already estimated at around 100,000. Now the field is about to be called up. That scene on the Sydney Harbour Bridge is being repeated throughout Australia as the nation goes on a giant betting splurge.
The Melbourne Cup, 5-1 Olay. 5-1 the Melbourne Cup.
A country with a population of 14 million on Melbourne Cup Day. In addition to the $7 million bet with bookmakers on course, more than $30 million is being placed in bets with government-controlled totalisator agencies throughout the country.
5-1, take it in the Cup. 5-1
The betting splurge extends to the Australian far north, to Darwin, 2,500 miles from Flemington Racetrack.
We have welcomed our 174 stations throughout Australia, including 55 of the ABC, New Zealand Television, and at this stage we welcome the BBC in London and RTV in Hong Kong. And for those
live television coverage takes the Cup throughout the nation. And in Darwin's tropical climate, the pub is as good a place as any to follow the fortunes of your Cup fancy. The interest in the Cup extends along the eastern Australian seaboard, taking in the resort beaches of Surfers Paradise in Queensland. Queensland may be one of the least populated Australian states, but its 2 million people still find more than $5 million betting money on Cup Day. To South Australia now, and in Adelaide's Rundle Street Mall, hundreds are attracted to a bank of television sets, tuned in to the Melbourne Cup. Not even shoppers and businessmen will miss out on a race that will be the talking point for days. To the west, Cup fever also sweeps Perth. It's almost like the early days of television in Australia, with crowds gathering outside electrical stores, determined not to miss out on the excitement building up on a racetrack 1,500 miles away. In Australia, the only thing that doesn't stop is the celebration that begins at daybreak at Flemington Racetrack itself. Melbourne Cup Day is a day of fashion, of champagne, of car park parties, a day when nothing else really matters.
It happens every year, I've seen it many times. There's something in the air, excitement no one can define. It's springtime in Australia, that's time to try your luck. First Tuesday in November, they run the Melbourne Cup. Oh, the Melbourne Cup brings Australia to a stop. From Darwin down to Hobart, from Perth up to Ayers Rock. The nation's in a fever, you're bound to be caught up. First Tuesday in November, they run the Melbourne Cup.
But what is there about a horse race that makes it so important? So important, in fact, that a public holiday has been held since 1865 here in Victoria, where the race is staged. To understand the significance of the race to Australia, you need to go back in history to 1861, when a horse called Archer became the first Melbourne Cup winner.
When the first Melbourne Cup was run, it had been only 90 years since Britain claimed Australia for a convict colony. It had been only 26 years since the village of Melbourne had been settled, and Australia would not become a nation for another 40 years. Melbourne's first race meeting had been held in 1838, only 3 years after the first settlers arrived. The person most familiar with the history of the Melbourne Cup is author Maurice Kavanagh. He's devoted a lifetime to telling the story of the Cup. And to Maurice, the strangest thing is that Australia's top horse race is a handicap event, simply because of a dispute between the two clubs controlling Victorian racing in those early days.
They both raced at Flemington, which is Melbourne's principal racecourse, but instead of working together for the mutual benefit of racing, they were continually arguing with each other. Now, the Jockey Club was the more conservative body. It was establishing racing, as you might expect, on English lines, because they were all English settlers anyway. So that the Derby, the Oaks, the Leger, they were, and the weight for age races, which are now normally called stakes races around the world, I believe, they were to be the dominant races. And then one of the mavericks on the Turf Club said, we'll upstage these people. We'll make a handicap the principal event of the turf year. And to that one sporting editorial writer responded, to make a handicap the principal event of the turf year is to make a farce of everything racing stands for. Its effect would be to make any Brumby bought out of a mob for 30 shillings the equal of the finest horse in the land. It's a mad idea, doomed to failure. Now, I found, Clem, that just 19 years later, the population at Flemington on Cup Day was over 100,000. And the entire population of Melbourne at that time was 288,000, which meant that from babies to grandparents, better than 1 in 3 of the population was at Flemington to see the Melbourne Cup.
There are 2 reasons why the Melbourne Cup has developed to be Australia's premier horse race. The first reason is purely geographical. At the time the event started, given Australia's vastness, travel could only be by sea. Melbourne was central to the main colonial settlements, and the slowness and hazards of transporting horses were reduced, but not eliminated.
In 1876, a ship coming down from Sydney to Melbourne Cup had 16 horses on them, ran into a terrible storm, and 14 of them were drowned, including the Cup favourite. So what really happened, Melbourne was geographically placed to be the central point for the best horses in the land.
But as well as having the best horses, the Melbourne Cup quickly established itself, because once a year it became the meeting place for the top decision makers in the land. They brought their wives to Flemington with them, and a whole social scene developed to give the Melbourne Cup an unparalleled stature. Then there are the stories they tell about the Melbourne Cup. Stories that are now part of Australian folklore.
Way back in 1870, there was a publican called Walter Craig. He had a hotel in Ballarat, the Gold City, still there. And Walter Craig was in the bar one day, and he'd had a dream the night before. And he said some people in the bar said, "Oh, very funny dream last night." He said, "I dreamt my horse, Nimblefoot was its name. My horse, Nimblefoot, will win the Melbourne Cup this year. But," he said, "as they went past the post, the jockey had a crepe armband on his left arm." He said, "All I can conclude is that if Nimblefoot wins the Cup, I won't be there to see it." Now, believe it or not, this was not some legend built up after the race. I read that story in the contemporary press before the Cup was run. Craig did die, Nimblefoot did win the Cup, and if anybody wants any evidence, if they can get into the VRC committee room, they'll see a contemporary painting of Nimblefoot, jockey, crepe armband.
As well as the stories, there is the legend of Phar Lap. Known as the Red Terror, he won the 1930 Melbourne Cup, and incredibly last year, he was back at Flemington, again gaining the adulation of the crowd. Phar Lap's preserved remains were paraded through the city before being taken to the course, and an entire nation remembered one of the greatest moments of the Australian turf. For a few hours, tens of thousands of people shared a memory Tommy Woodcock carries with him constantly. Tommy was Phar Lap's handler in the year he won the Cup. And although now 76 years old, Tommy still trains horses in Melbourne. And even as he works in his stables, Tommy remembers the incredible security measures that were taken that day 50 years ago. There was a threat that acid would be squirted in the champion's eyes. And with Phar Lap, the shortest price favourite ever to win the Cup, on the Saturday before, gangsters had tried to shoot him. But Tommy spotted their car from his pony as he was leading Phar Lap back from track work.
I just jogged the pony along and trotted, and they thought I'd going straight ahead. Instead of that, I ducked round the corner and propped him against the fence, and of course the car went round the corner not expecting to see me there, and of course he was a fair way away, and it was a little bit difficult shot they had from the back of the car, and they missed him. They were about 2 yards away from him. I procked him about 2 yards, and he jumped bad, pulled me off the pony, and I didn't let him go, and the milkman caught the pony and handed him to me, and we trotted and cantered back to the stables.
Despite the drama, Phar Lap won his lead-up race to the Cup that Saturday, and Tommy was never in doubt that the champion would win again on the Tuesday.
He was a great horse, Clem, Phar Lap, and he was really fit that time, the fittest he's been for a long, long time.
Well, what was it about Phar Lap that made him so remarkable?
Well, I don't know, Clem, but he was a great heart, a great temperament of horse, and he was a real top horse, one of the best, I think, in them days. I don't know about now, but in these days it had taken a very, very good horse to win, to beat him. See, when he won the Melbourne Cup, he won a mile and a quarter on the Saturday, and then he won the 2-mile race on the Tuesday, on the Thursday, and a mile race he at the front about 5 furlongs from home in a mile race, and cantered on the mile race, and on the following Saturday he won another 1.5 mile race, so he wasn't a bad horse, Clem.
He's certainly a remarkable horse,
yes.
And then...
Oh, yes.
I know you've got a very soft spot for him. You'll never see another horse like Phar Lap.
Oh, no, he was a lovely tempered horse. I could do anything with Phar Lap. I'd call him, he'd come to me, follow me around. You know, we was real buddies all our lives.
In 1932, Tommy travelled with Phar Lap to America, never leaving his side, calming the horse as a ship's crane swung him aboard for the journey. Later in New Mexico, Phar Lap won the Agua Caliente, and it was one of his greatest wins.
Phar Lap was only loafing. Elliott gives him his head. He settles down to the business of making a race out of it, and it's a walk away. And a new record of 2 minutes, 2 4/5 seconds, and the glorious total of $332,000 worth of winnings. It's a great debut for the Australian beauty, Phar Lap, one of the handsomest horses ever seen on an American track. A little temperamental, but what star isn't? In one race, he's proved himself. A real champion and a new racetrack idol.
But the triumph was followed by tragedy in California when Phar Lap died mysteriously. And Tommy Woodcock still doesn't know why.
The horse died so quick. The day before he died, he was as fit as a fiddle. There was about 1,500 people to see him, and the kids gave him sugar, but I used to pull the sugar out of my pocket and give to them to give him. So they gave him nothing. And I got one lot of feed oats out of Bond and gave him one feed out of him, and he dead the next day. But they couldn't find anything in the feed that I gave him.
It's just a mystery.
Just a mystery how he died. And nobody could get at him because we was in an enclosed stable, and I was sleeping right alongside of him. I wasn't 2 feet away from him.
In Australia, an entire nation mourned Phar Lap's death, with this newsreel forever recording the tragedy everyone felt.
Farewell, Phar Lap. You have entered on the last and farthest lap of all. The mightiest horse ever come out of Australia has gone to the same dust as that of the lowliest hackney of the hansom cab. In a few months, he would have topped the prize lists of the world. Now he has gone to a happy hunting ground where the jockey's whip is never raised and where the grass is always green. Soon, he will have become just a tradition of the turf, and those red devil's legs, those extraordinary engines of power and beauty, which carried him to 37 victories, will flash down the straight only in men's memories. But Phar Lap, the inspiration and the memory, will live forever in the world of horses, wherever a flying chestnut stirs the blood of human beings. He was a good horse.
Lovely, you know, to think, you know, you could look after and take care of a horse like Phar Lap. It was, you know, great honour, I think, to be looking after him.
But Tom, what does the Melbourne Cup mean to you?
Oh, gee, Clem would like to have another Phar Lap to race in it. I'd be quite happy.
Is it because of
I'll have to hurry up, though. I'm getting too old now.
So now, 1981, and the Melbourne Cup is about to be run for the 121st time. Some 482 horses were nominated initially for this year's Cup. And as the field was whittled down to the 24 starters, at racetracks throughout Australia, the Cup contenders underwent exhaustive preparation. With entries taken 5 months before the running of the Cup, interest in track work is intense. For Australians generally, track work may well answer the only question that's asked in the first week in November: what will win the Cup? And for racehorse owners, trainers and jockeys, there's even more at stake. The Melbourne Cup is the highlight of the grandest spring racing carnival in the Southern Hemisphere. The carnival runs from late August through to mid-November. And the total stake money this year is just under $4 million. The money is quite a lure, but it has another benefit. There are prize money conditions to be met for a horse to gain one of the coveted 24 starting positions. The handicapper decides the rest. But here at Sunrise at Flemington, there is no distinction. Horses who've never won a race gallop alongside the top stake winners in the land. Leading jockeys share mounts with stable hands, and a rider like Harry White is easily lost in the throng. But Harry is a leading figure in the modern-day history of the Melbourne Cup. He is only the second jockey in history to have ridden 4 Melbourne Cup winners.
It is every young rider's ambition to win a cup, and my father had won a Caulfield Cup, and I had something to sort of chase, and I never ever dreamed as a young fella that I'd have alone win 4, but not even 1, you know. I didn't think I'd ever win a Melbourne Cup. You know?
You're going for your 5th Melbourne Cup win this year. Now, will you feel any different this year than you did perhaps even in your first ride in the Cup?
I'm trying to get a record. I've equalled at the stage, but I find that you know, I haven't got many more small mistakes to make, so I've got to pick the right horses. It's a lot of hard work goes into it. It's a lot of studying, selecting your horse, riding the horse, getting to know the horse. You've got to know everything about that horse you're going to ride in that 2-mile race.
Harry, what about nerves on Cup days?
Well, Clem, I've got a bit of a funny story about that, about nerves. I think Big had run last in the McKinnon Stakes on the Saturday. He was running in the Cup on the Tuesday, and he's just a hopeless horse on the wet track, completely hopeless. So anyway, the track was very heavy, and it was pouring rain at the races and in the morning, so I decided then I couldn't win the race. So you talk about nerves, so I went and had a bit of a lay down in the jockey's room, in the casualty room there, and was out like a light. And I'll never forget it. Dr. Thomas came in, who's the vet in the jockey's room, and woke me up. He said, are you all right? I said, yeah, I'm in this race. And he went out back that it was about 33 to 1. He thought I said I'd win this race. And he won.
Trainer Bart Cummings shared that laugh with Harry White back in 1975. They'd also combined to win the 1974 Cup, again with Think Big. And in all, Bart Cummings has won 7 Melbourne Cups, more than any trainer in Australian history. On 4 occasions, he's trained both the winner and the runner-up. It's a record that's earned Bart Cummings the nickname, the Cup's King. Certainly more than anyone else, he knows what it's like to win a Melbourne Cup.
Well, it was a terrific thrill when the first year I won it, and just seemed to continue roll on since then. And these days, I think people expect it of me, but it's pretty, it's still a thrill, and I like in there challenging the rest.
For you, it goes back a long way. I think you strapped Comic Court to success for your late father.
Yeah, 1950, I was a groom for Dad, and Comic Court won, and that was probably the first big thrill for me, and I thought, well, it'd be great to train one myself.
So that was the inspiration behind your success?
I believe so, yes.
On Cup Day itself, do you feel any different about Melbourne Cup Day than any other race day?
Oh, well, it's good when it's over, especially if you win.
What happens if you lose?
Not much difference.
But you train a horse specifically for a Melbourne Cup. How long's the preparation?
Well, I wouldn't say specifically, but I do think it takes about 6 months planning and patience to have them just right at that particular time. But first of all, you've got to have a good horse, and you've got to have a stone, you've got to have a good jockey and good staff. There's a lot of backup to it. It's just not the horse and jockey and trainer. There's a lot more to it. And, you know, I've really been fortunate over the years to have that combination, and I hope it continues. I've got a pretty loyal staff, good riders.
What's your secret to winning Melbourne Cups?
I wouldn't have a clue. I wish I knew. Don't know. Just get the right horse and plug away. Hope for the best.
Now everyone is waiting. The hour is very near. The bets are laid, the bookies paid. It's time to have a beer. The horses all stand ready, and the crowd begins to roar. And now they're up, they're racing in the Melbourne Cup once more. Oh, the Melbourne Cup brings Australia to a stop. From Darwin down to Hobart, from Perth up to Ayers Rock. The nation's in a fever, you're bound to be caught up. First Tuesday in November, they run the Melbourne Cup. First Tuesday in November, they run the Melbourne Cup.
On the turn, 600 left to go, and it's Belldale Ball by a length and a half. Yash Mac into second place, followed by Bohemian Grove. Then Reckon I'm Ready over on the inside. Bra Virginia was next. Miss Judina running on fairly. 500 left to go. Belldale Ball kicked away now. He's 3 lengths in front in the Cup of Yash Mac on the outside. Then Love Bandit, followed by Bra Virginia. Arwen's running on fairly down the outside, followed by Hyperno. 250 left to go. Let's Goes for the whip on Belldale Ball. He's 3 lengths clear of Love Bandit. Bra Virginia, look at Wyburn.